My husband called me a gold digger and demanded I pay half of everything. Then he discovered I'd been paying all the bills for years while he spent our money on his mistress. His face, when the lawyer revealed the truth, left everyone speechless. Subscribe to the channel and like the video to see more stories like this. My husband of 7 years demanded that we split all the household bills because he said he wouldn't support a gold-digging woman. The words came out of Marcus's mouth on a Tuesday evening while I was preparing dinner in our kitchen. He stood in the doorway with his arms crossed, his jaw set in that stubborn way I'd come to recognize over the years. Behind him, I could hear his mother Patricia's voice drifting from the living room where she sat with his sister Vanessa, both of them visiting for what they called a family dinner. "I need you to start paying your fair share, Claire," Marcus said, his voice loud enough that I knew his family could hear every word. "I'm tired of carrying this household financially while you spend your days doing whatever it is you do." I turned from the stove slowly, the wooden spoon still in my hand. "Whatever it is I do," I repeated quietly. "You know what I mean," he continued, walking further into the kitchen. "You haven't contributed a single dollar to this household in months. The mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, my car payment, everything falls on me. I won't be taken advantage of anymore." From the living room, I heard Patricia's voice call out, "That's right, Marcus. A woman should contribute equally in a modern marriage. It's only fair." My hands trembled slightly as I set down the spoon. 7 years of marriage, and this was the moment Marcus chose to have this conversation in front of his mother and sister, in the home that I had been secretly maintaining financially while he lived his double life. "So you want to split the bills?" I said carefully, making sure my voice remained steady. 50-50, he confirmed, starting immediately. "And I want to see proof that you're actually paying your half. Bank statements, receipts, everything. I'm done being your meal ticket." Vanessa appeared in the kitchen doorway, her expression smug. "It's about time you stood up for yourself, Marcus. Some women just coast through life expecting men to take care of everything." I looked at her, then at Marcus, then back to the pasta sauce simmering on the stove. The irony of this moment was almost beautiful in its cruelty. If they only knew the truth. If they had any idea what I'd been quietly managing while Marcus played the role of successful provider in front of his family. "All right," I said simply. "We'll split everything 50-50. Marcus blinked, clearly surprised by my easy agreement. "Really? Just like that?" "Just like that," I confirmed. "In fact, why don't we start by reviewing exactly what bills need to be split? I think it's important we're both clear on our financial situation." Something flickered in Marcus's eyes then, a brief shadow of uncertainty, but his mother's approving voice from the living room seemed to bolster his confidence. "Good," he said firmly. "We'll sit down this weekend and go through everything. And Claire?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping but still audible to his hovering family members. "I know about the credit cards, the shopping, the spa appointments, all of it, so don't think you can hide your spending from me anymore." I smiled then, a small smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I wouldn't dream of hiding anything, Marcus. Transparency is important in a marriage, don't you think?" That night, after his family finally left, and Marcus retreated to the guest room where he'd been sleeping for the past 3 weeks, claiming he needed space to think about our relationship, I sat alone in our home office. The room that Marcus never entered because he claimed financial paperwork bored him. The room where I kept meticulous records of everything. I opened my laptop and pulled up a folder I'd been maintaining for the past 18 months. Ever since the first time I'd noticed the charges on our joint credit card that didn't match any purchases I'd made. Ever since I'd followed Marcus one evening and discovered him entering an apartment building downtown. Ever since I'd hired a private investigator named James Rourke, who'd confirmed what I already suspected in my gut. My husband was having an affair with a 26-year-old woman named Simone Harper, and he'd been funding their entire relationship with what he believed was our shared money. But here was the thing Marcus didn't know, the detail he'd somehow managed to overlook in his arrogance. The mortgage on our house, in my name only, and I'd been paying it in full from my own account for the past 4 years. The utilities, all automatically drafted from my personal checking account. His precious BMW that he loved to show off to his friends, the lease was in my name, and I'd been making every single payment. Even the credit cards he'd been using to wine and dine Simone, those were connected to my accounts, not his. Marcus's salary from his position as a sales manager at an electronics company was decent, around $75,000 a year. But what he didn't know was that I'd been running a successful financial consulting business from home for the past 6 years, working with clients remotely while he assumed I spent my days shopping and having lunch with friends. My annual income, just over $230,000. I pulled up the bank statements, printed them methodically, and placed them in a folder. Then I opened the file James had sent me last week, the final report documenting Marcus's affair. Photos of him and Simone at restaurants, entering her apartment together, shopping for jewelry at stores I'd never been to with him. Receipts showing he'd been paying for her rent, buying her designer handbags, even funding a vacation to Cancun he'd told me was a work trip, all with my money. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from my friend Rachel, checking in as she'd been doing regularly since I'd confided in her about Marcus's infidelity. "How did it go tonight?" she asked. I typed back quickly. "He demanded we split bills 50-50. Called me a gold digger in front of his family." The response came immediately. "Oh, Claire, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do?" I looked at the stack of papers on my desk, the evidence of Marcus's betrayal and his complete misunderstanding of our financial situation. Then I thought about his smug expression in the kitchen, the way his mother and sister had looked at me with judgment and pity, the way he'd spoken to me like I was some kind of burden he'd been carrying for years. "I'm going to give him exactly what he asked for," I typed. Transparency. The next morning, I woke early and got to work. I called my attorney, Daniel Frost, who I'd been consulting with quietly for the the past 2 months. We'd been preparing for this moment, though I hadn't expected Marcus to accelerate the timeline with his demands. Claire, Daniel's voice was warm but professional when he answered, I was hoping you'd call soon. Are we moving forward? Yes, I confirmed. He asked for a 50-50 split of bills last night in front of his family, accused me of being a gold digger. There was a pause. Then Daniel's voice came back with barely suppressed anger on my behalf. And he has no idea that you've been paying for everything? None whatsoever, I said. He genuinely believes he's been supporting me this entire time. Then it's time to show him the truth, Daniel said. I'll prepare the documents. Can you come to my office this afternoon? I'll be there at 2. After hanging up with Daniel, I made another call, this one to James Rourke. Mrs. Mitchell, James answered professionally. How can I help you? I need the complete file, James. Everything you've documented over the past 18 months, and I need it ready by tomorrow morning. Consider it done, he replied. And Claire, for what it's worth, I'm sorry you're going through this, but from what I've seen, you're handling it with incredible strength. That strength was about to be tested in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. Marcus emerged from the guest room around 9, already dressed in his work clothes, his expression still carrying that self-righteous determination from the night before. I'm meeting with a financial advisor today, he announced, pouring himself coffee, to figure out the best way to separate our finances properly. That's good, I said mildly, buttering toast. I'm meeting with someone today too, actually. Oh? He looked up with interest, finally getting serious about finding real work. I smiled, something like that. He left for work without kissing me goodbye, a routine that had started months ago, but still stung each time. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I went back to the home office and continued preparing. By noon, I had everything organized, bank statements going back 7 years, showing my consistent payments on all household expenses, the mortgage documents with my name as sole owner, purchased with my own down payment before we'd even married, the car lease agreements, the credit card statements with highlighted charges that I could prove went to Simone, from the jewelry stores to the rent payments on her apartment. I also pulled up the documents from my business, showing the steady growth of my consulting firm over the years, the contracts with major corporations, the glowing testimonials from clients, the tax returns that Marcus had signed without actually reading because he trusted me to handle the boring details. At 1 in the afternoon, I received a text from Marcus, working late tonight. Don't wait up for dinner. I knew what working late meant. James had already confirmed that Wednesday evenings were when Marcus typically visited Simone's apartment, usually staying until 10 or 11 before coming home with excuses about networking events or late client meetings. I texted back a simple, okay, have a good evening. Then I drove to Daniel's office in downtown Denver, the folder of documents secure in my briefcase. Daniel's office was located on the 23rd floor of a sleek building overlooking the city. His receptionist, a kind woman named Margaret, greeted me with sympathy in her eyes. She'd been present during several of my previous consultations and had heard enough to understand the situation. He's ready for you, Mrs. Mitchell, she said gently. And if you need anything, coffee, water, tissues, just let me know. I thanked her and walked into Daniel's office, where he stood from behind his desk to greet me. Claire, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Thank you for coming. Let's talk about your options. For the next 2 hours, we went through everything. The financial abuse, so Marcus didn't see it that way. The adultery, documented in painful detail by James's investigation. The fact that our house was in my name only, meaning Marcus had no legal claim to it. The reality that most of our major assets were either in my name or had been paid for exclusively by me. Colorado is a no-fault divorce state, Daniel explained, but the adultery and financial deception will definitely impact how the court views his claims, especially since you can prove that he's been using marital funds, which in this case means your money, to support his affair. What about his demands for a 50-50 split? I asked. Daniel smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. We're going to give him exactly that, a 50-50 split of the bills he actually contributed to, which, based on these statements, amounts to almost nothing for the past several years. He pulled out a calculator and started tallying numbers from my documentation. Let's see, he murmured. In the past year alone, you've paid approximately $93,000 toward household expenses, while Marcus has contributed roughly $12,000, mostly in cash here and there for groceries when you specifically asked him to shop. And the rest of his salary? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Based on the credit card statements and the investigator's report, Daniel said grimly, it appears he's been spending approximately $40,000 a year on Simone, rent, gifts, travel, dining out, all while telling you, and apparently himself, that he was the one supporting your household. I felt a flash of anger then, hot and sharp, but I kept my voice steady. So what's our strategy? We're going to file for divorce, Daniel said. We'll cite the adultery, present all your financial documentation, and request that Marcus pay you back for his share of household expenses for the past 7 years. We'll also make sure he understands that he has no claim to your house, your business, or any assets you purchased before the marriage, or with your own income during the marriage. He paused, studying me carefully. Claire, I need to ask, are you absolutely sure you want to proceed with this? Divorce is final. There's no going back once we file. I thought about Marcus's face last night, the casual cruelty in his voice. I thought about his mother and sister, their judgment clear in their eyes. I thought about all the nights he'd come home late, claiming exhaustion from work while he'd actually been with Simone. All the times he'd criticized my appearance, my activities, my worth, while I'd been quietly holding our entire life together financially. I'm sure, I said firmly. File the papers. Daniel nodded, making notes. We'll file tomorrow morning. But Claire, you should know that once we do this, Marcus is going to be angry, very angry. You need to be prepared for his reaction. I understand, I said, but I'm done being made to feel like I'm worthless. I'm done with the financial abuse and the cheating and the lies. Then we'll make sure the truth comes out. out. Daniel assured me, all of it. I left his office as the sun was beginning to set over Denver, casting long shadows across the city streets. My phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. Going to be later than I thought. Might not make it home until after midnight. Hope you're doing something productive with your day. I looked at that message for a long moment, at the casual dismissal and the underlying accusation. Then I texted back, very productive. You'll see the results soon. He didn't respond, too busy with Simone to notice the warning in my words. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in our bed, alone, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how we'd gotten here. Marcus and I had met 9 years ago at a mutual friend's party. He'd been charming, attentive, full of plans for the future. We'd dated for 2 years before getting married in a beautiful ceremony that I'd paid for, though he didn't know that because I'd let him believe his parents had covered more than they actually had. The first few years of marriage had been good, or so I'd thought. We'd bought this house together, though again, I'd provided the entire down payment from savings Marcus didn't know I had. I'd started my consulting business shortly after the wedding, working from home so we could start a family soon. But the family never came. Marcus kept saying he wasn't ready, that he wanted to be more financially stable first, that we had plenty of time. Now I understood the real reason. He'd been building a different life with someone else. The affair had started about 3 years into our marriage, according to James's investigation. That's when the first suspicious charges appeared on our credit cards. Small things at first. Dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, flowers I'd never received, then bigger purchases. The apartment rent that Marcus told me was for a storage unit for his work equipment. The jewelry that he said was a business gift for a client's wife. The vacation that was supposedly a required company trip. I'd ignored the signs at first, trusted him, believed his explanations, but 18 months ago, everything changed. I found a receipt in his jacket pocket for a romantic dinner for 2 at one of the nicest restaurants in Denver. When I asked him about it, he'd gotten defensive, accused me of not trusting him, said it was a business dinner with a female client and her husband who'd stepped away when the check came. The lie had been so smooth, so practiced, that I'd almost believed it. Almost. Instead, I'd hired James, and James had uncovered everything. Marcus finally came home at 1 in the morning. I heard him stumble slightly in the hallway, probably a little drunk, definitely smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. He went straight to the guest room without checking on me. I lay there in the darkness, knowing that tomorrow everything would change. Daniel would file the divorce papers, Marcus would be served, and the truth would finally come to light. The next morning, I woke to an empty house. Marcus had already left for work, leaving behind his usual mess in the guest room. Clothes on the floor, wet towels on the bed. I looked at the disorder with fresh eyes, seeing it now as symbolic of how he'd treated our entire marriage. I showered, dressed in a navy blue suit that made me feel powerful, and checked my phone. A message from Daniel confirmed what I'd been waiting for. Papers filed at 8 this morning. Process server will deliver to Marcus's office at noon. Are you somewhere safe? I'm at home, I texted back. And I'm ready. The hours before noon crawled by. I worked on client projects, trying to keep my mind occupied, but every few minutes I found myself checking the clock. At 11:30, I couldn't sit still anymore. I called Rachel. Today's the day, I told her when she answered. Oh, Claire, she breathed. How are you feeling? Terrified, relieved, angry, everything all at once. Do you want me to come over? Rachel offered. You shouldn't be alone when he finds out. No, I said firmly. I need to face this myself, but thank you. Just knowing you're there helps. After we hung up, I made myself tea with shaking hands and sat in the living room waiting. At exactly 12:15, my phone exploded with calls. Marcus. I didn't answer. He called again and again. Then the texts started flooding in. What the hell is this, Claire? You had me served at work? At work? In front of everyone? This is insane. We need to talk about this right now. I'm coming home. You better be there. I set the phone down and waited, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. 20 minutes later, I heard his car screech into the driveway. The front door slammed open and Marcus stormed in, his face red with fury. The divorce papers crumpled in his fist. What the hell is this? He shouted, waving the papers at me. You're divorcing me? Because I asked you to contribute financially? Are you insane? I remained seated on the couch, my hands folded calmly in my lap. I'm divorcing you because you've been having an affair for the past 3 years, I said quietly, and because you've been stealing from me to fund that affair. Marcus rose, the color draining from his face. What are you talking about? I stood up slowly and walked to the coffee table, where I'd laid out a folder. I opened it and pulled out the first photograph. Marcus and Simone entering her apartment building, his arm around her waist. I set it down in front of him. This is what I'm talking about. He stared at the photo, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Claire, I can explain. Can you explain this? I pulled out another photo, this one showing them kissing in a restaurant. Or this? A receipt for a diamond bracelet purchased 3 months ago, one I'd never seen. Or maybe this? The lease agreement for Simone's apartment, with payments traced back to our joint credit card. Marcus sank onto the arm of the chair, the papers falling from his hand. When did you? 18 months ago, I said calmly. That's when I hired a private investigator. That's when I started documenting everything. Every lie, every dollar you spent on her, every night you claimed to be working late. He looked up at me and I saw desperation replacing anger. Claire, please. It's not what it looks like. Simone, she's just a friend who was going through a hard time. I was helping her out. I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. A friend? Marcus, you've been paying her rent for 2 years. You bought her a car. You took her to Cancun while telling me it was a work trip. And according to the investigator's report, you've told her multiple times that you're planning to leave me for her as soon as you figure out the finances. That last part wasn't entirely true. James's investigation had shown that Marcus kept stringing Simone along without actually committing to leaving me, but I wanted to see Marcus's reaction. His face confirmed confirmed everything. The guilt, the calculation, the way he was already trying to figure out how to spin this. Those papers, I continued, pointing to the divorce filing on the floor, outline everything. The adultery, the financial abuse, and the fact that you owe me approximately $340,000 in back payments for household expenses. 300 what? Marcus's voice cracked. That's ridiculous. I've been supporting this household for years. Have you? I walked back to the folder and pulled out bank statements, highlighted and annotated. Let's review, shall we? The mortgage on this house, which is in my name only, paid entirely by me for the past 7 years. Total amount, $168,000. Utilities, $49,000. Your car lease, $63,000. Credit cards used primarily by you, $87,000. Should I continue? Marcus grabbed the statements, his hands trembling as he scanned them. This can't be right. I make good money. I've been contributing. You make $75,000 a year, I said, and according to these credit card statements and bank records, you've been spending approximately $40,000 of that annually on Simone. The remaining $35,000 barely covers your personal expenses, clothing, your gym membership, your golf games with friends, your nights out with coworkers that I now know included Simone. But the house, the bills, he stammered. I assumed. You assumed I was living off you. I finished for him. You assumed that because I work from home, I must not be making real money. You assumed that everything we had came from your income. Well, Marcus, surprise. I make 3 times what you make. I always have. And I've been carrying this household financially while you played sugar daddy to your mistress. The word mistress seemed to physically strike him. He flinched, then tried to recover. Claire, I made a mistake. A huge mistake. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll end things with Simone. We can start over. Start over? I shook my head slowly. Marcus, you called me a gold digger in front of your family. You humiliated me in my own home. You've been lying to me for 3 years. You've stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars from me. And you want to start over? It won't happen again, he pleaded, standing up and reaching for my hands. I swear, I'll do whatever it takes. I love you, Claire. I've always loved you. I pulled my hands away. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 3 years sleeping with someone else. If you loved me, you wouldn't have made me feel worthless while you spent my money on her. If you loved me, you wouldn't have stood in our kitchen yesterday and demanded I prove my financial worth to your judgmental family. My family, he said suddenly, his eyes widening. Oh God, my family. They don't know, do they? About Simone? Not yet, I said, but they will. The divorce filing is public record, Marcus. All of it. The adultery, the financial details, everything. It'll all come out. He sank back down, his head in his hands. This will destroy me. At work, with my family, everyone will know. Yes, I said simply, they will. Just like everyone at your office now knows you were served with divorce papers at work, just like everyone will eventually know the truth about our finances and your affair. Claire, please. He looked up at me with tears in his eyes. Don't do this. We can figure something out. I'll pay you back every penny. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't go through with this. The doorbell rang, interrupting his pleading. I walked to the door and opened it to find Daniel standing there with another man in a suit. Mrs. Mitchell, Daniel said professionally, this is Officer Frank Reynolds. We have the restraining order you requested. Marcus jumped up from the chair. Restraining order? Claire, what the hell? Given the nature of the adultery and financial abuse, Daniel continued, addressing Marcus now, and Mrs. Mitchell's concern for her safety during divorce proceedings, the court has granted a temporary restraining order. You need to vacate the premises immediately and maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from Mrs. Mitchell and this property. This is my house, Marcus shouted. Actually, Daniel pulled out documentation. This house is solely in Mrs. Mitchell's name. You have no legal claim to it. Officer Reynolds is here to ensure you pack your essential belongings and leave peacefully. I watched as Marcus's world crumbled before his eyes. The reality of his situation was finally sinking in. He'd lost his wife, his home, and soon his reputation. All because he'd gotten greedy and careless with someone else's money. You've got 30 minutes to pack what you need, Officer Reynolds said firmly. The rest of your belongings will be inventoried and made available for pickup at a later date through proper channels. Marcus looked at me one last time, something like understanding finally dawning in his eyes. You planned this, all of it. The quiet acceptance yesterday, the meetings, everything. You've been planning this for months. 18 months, I corrected him. That's how long you've had to come clean, to show me an ounce of respect, to stop stealing from me. You didn't. So yes, I planned this, very carefully. He stood there for a moment longer, then turned and walked up the stairs to pack. Officer Reynolds followed him while Daniel stayed with me in the living room. Are you okay? Daniel asked quietly. I'm better than I've been in years, I admitted. Is that wrong? Should I feel sadder about this? You feel however you need to feel, he said. This man betrayed you in every possible way. You have every right to protect yourself and your assets. 30 minutes later, Marcus came down the stairs with 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. He looked defeated, smaller somehow. As he reached the door, he turned back to me. Where am I supposed to go? He asked. I don't know, Marcus, I replied. Maybe Simone's apartment, the one I've been paying for? I'm sure she'll be thrilled to finally have you full time. Of course, she might be less thrilled when she finds out you can't actually afford to support her lifestyle anymore. His jaw tightened. You're enjoying this? No, I said honestly. I'm not enjoying any of this, but I am relieved that it's finally over, that I don't have to pretend anymore, that I don't have to watch you lie to my face every day while you steal from me and cheat on me. Officer Reynolds cleared his throat. Time to go, sir. Marcus walked out without another word. I watched through the window as he loaded his belongings into his BMW, the car I'd been paying for, the car he was about to lose along with everything else. Then he drove away, and I was alone in my house for the first time in 7 years. I sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. Daniel sat beside me, giving me a moment to process. What happens now? I asked. asked. Now, he said. We wait for his attorney to respond to the filing. Based on what we've documented, I expect they'll try to negotiate rather than go to trial. No lawyer wants to defend a case this clear-cut where their client is obviously at fault, and his claim to any of my assets won't hold up, Daniel assured me. The house is yours, purchased before marriage with your own funds. Your business is yours, built entirely during the marriage, but with no contribution from him. The only things you technically shared were the credit cards, which you can prove he abused, and some joint savings that amount to maybe $15,000. You'll probably have to split that, but everything else is protected. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know what you did. You destroyed him. I hope you're happy. You vindictive bitch. Simone, I assumed. I showed the message to Daniel. Save that, he said immediately. Any harassment from her or Marcus can be added to the restraining order. Another buzz, this time from Patricia, Marcus's mother. Marcus just called me crying. How could you do this to him? To our family? I always knew you were trouble. You never deserved him. I felt a surge of anger reading that message. The woman who'd sat in my living room last night in the house I owned, judging me for being a supposed gold digger while her son stole from me and cheated on me. The irony was almost too much. I typed back quickly, my fingers flying over the screen before I could second guess myself. Patricia, your son has been having an affair for 3 years. He's been using my money to pay for his mistress's apartment, her car, her lifestyle. Every bill in this house, every expense for our life together, I've paid. Not him. Me. He called me a gold digger while stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from me. Maybe instead of attacking me, you should ask him why he lied to everyone about our finances while committing adultery. I hit send before Daniel could stop me. Probably shouldn't engage, he said mildly, but I can't say she didn't deserve to hear the truth. 3 dots appeared immediately as Patricia typed, then stopped, then started again. Finally, a message came through. That's impossible. Marcus makes excellent money. He's always been the provider in your marriage. You're lying to cover up whatever you did to drive him away. I took a screenshot of one of the bank statements showing my mortgage payments and sent it to her. Then another showing the car lease in my name. Then the credit card statement with Simone's apartment rent highlighted. Ask him about Simone Harper, I typed. Ask him where he was every Wednesday night for the past 2 years. Ask him who he took to Cancun last February. Ask him why he needed a second phone that he kept hidden in his gym bag. And then ask yourself why you're so quick to defend him without knowing the facts. This time, there was no response. My phone rang. Rachel, I just saw your post on the neighborhood Facebook group, she said breathlessly. What post? I asked, confused. Vanessa, Rachel said grimly. Marcus's sister. She just posted that you're divorcing Marcus and that you're a gold-digging woman who's trying to steal everything he worked for. Claire, it's bad. People are already commenting. My stomach dropped. I pulled up Facebook on my laptop and found the neighborhood group. Sure enough, Vanessa had posted a long rant about how I was destroying her poor brother who'd supported me for years, how I was a manipulative woman who'd trapped him in marriage, how everyone should know the truth about me before believing my lies. The comments were already piling up. Some people defending me, saying they'd always found me kind and professional. Others agreeing with Vanessa, saying they'd always suspected I was taking advantage of Marcus. Several asking what really happened. Daniel, I said, showing him the screen. Can she do this? He read quickly, his expression darkening. This is defamation. Clear cut. She's making false statements that damage your reputation. We can add this to the case and potentially sue her separately. Do it, I said firmly. I'm done letting his family trash me while protecting him. If they want to make this public, we'll make it very public. Daniel made a call to his office, instructing his paralegal to screenshot everything and begin preparing a cease and desist letter to Vanessa. Meanwhile, I sat at my laptop, staring at the post, watching the comments multiply. Then I made a decision. If Vanessa wanted to make this public, I'd give her public. I typed my own response directly under her post. Since Vanessa has chosen to make private family matters public, let me provide some facts. 1. The house Marcus and I lived in is in my name only, purchased with my own funds. 2. I have been paying all household expenses for the past 7 years while running a successful financial consulting business from home. 3. Marcus has been having an affair for 3 years with a woman named Simone Harper, spending approximately $40,000 annually of my money to support her. 4. I have documentation of all of this, including bank statements, credit card records, and an investigator's report. 5. Marcus was served with divorce papers today after demanding I prove my financial contribution to our household, not knowing I'd been paying for everything while he funded his affair. If anyone would like to see the documentation, I'm happy to provide it through my attorney. Otherwise, I'd appreciate if people would stop making assumptions based on lies. I hit post before I could change my mind. The comment section exploded. Within minutes, people were demanding Vanessa apologize, sharing their own stories of financial abuse, expressing shock at the revelations. Several people commented that they'd always thought Marcus seemed too slick, too charming. Others said they'd suspected something was off about how he talked about money versus how they actually lived. Vanessa responded within seconds, all caps. You're lying. My brother would never cheat. You're just making this up to justify stealing from him. I replied calmly. Your brother has been served with legal divorce papers citing adultery with evidence. The truth will come out in court whether you believe it now or not. I suggest you talk to Marcus before making more false accusations. Someone else commented, asking if I really had proof. I responded that all evidence had been filed with the court and was public record, and that anyone interested could request copies through proper legal channels. My phone rang again. Unknown number, I answered cautiously. Mrs. Mitchell, a woman's voice, young and uncertain. This is Simone Harper. I held the phone away from my ear for a moment, processing the fact that Marcus's mistress was calling me. Daniel, who'd been typing on his laptop, looked up sharply. Simone, Simone, I finally said. What do you want? Her voice trembled. I need to know if what you said is true. About Marcus lying about money. About you paying for everything. It's all true, I confirmed. I have documentation proving every word. There was a long pause, then I heard her take a shaky breath. He told me he was leaving you. That you were the one draining his accounts. That he was supporting you and you refused to get a job. He said once the divorce went through, we'd be together and he'd finally be free of your financial burden. I closed my eyes, feeling an unexpected wave of sympathy for this woman who'd been lied to almost as much as I had. Simone, Marcus makes $75,000 a year. I make over $200,000. I've been paying for the house, the cars, the bills, everything. And yes, I've been paying for your apartment too. Your rent comes out of a credit card that's linked to my bank account. The sound that came through the phone was something between a sob and a gasp. No, that can't be right. He bought me gifts. He took me on trips. He said he was investing in our future. With my money, I said quietly. I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I'm telling you because you deserve to know the truth. Marcus has been lying to both of us. I trusted him, she whispered. I turned down other opportunities, other relationships. I waited for him. He said he just needed time to figure out the finances, to make sure the divorce wouldn't ruin him. He made me feel like I was the one, like we were building something real. How old are you, Simone? I asked, though I already knew from the investigator's report. 26. I'm 34, I told her. When Marcus and I met, I was 25, just like you, and he made me feel exactly the same way. Special, chosen, like I was the center of his world. But it was all performance, all manipulation. And now he's done the same thing to you. What am I supposed to do now? She asked, her voice breaking. I quit my job 6 months ago because he said he'd take care of me. I have no savings. The apartment lease is in my name, but I can't afford the rent without his help. That's financial abuse, I said firmly, making someone dependent on you so they can't leave. Simone, I'm going to give you some advice. Document everything. Every promise he made, every payment he gave you, every lie he told. Get yourself a lawyer and get yourself a job, any job, so you can start rebuilding your independence. Why are you helping me? She asked, confusion clear in her voice. I slept with your husband. I destroyed your marriage. You didn't destroy my marriage, I corrected her. Marcus did that all by himself. You were just a symptom of a much bigger problem. And I'm helping you because I know what it's like to trust someone who doesn't deserve it. I know what it's like to have your reality completely shattered. I'm so sorry, she said quietly. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I know, I replied. But Simone, don't contact me again. And don't contact Marcus either. Both of us need to move forward without him. I hung up before she could respond. Daniel was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. That was remarkably gracious of you, he said. I shrugged. She's a victim too, in a way. Maybe not as much as me, but Marcus lied to her just like he lied to me. Besides, if she goes after him legally for the promises he made, it'll only strengthen our case. Smart thinking, Daniel acknowledged. Speaking of which, I just got an email from Marcus's attorney. They want to negotiate. Already? I was surprised. It's only been a few hours. Your Facebook post lit a fire, Daniel explained. Apparently, Marcus's boss saw it and called him in for a meeting about inappropriate use of company resources. Several co-workers have come forward saying they suspected the affair but didn't want to get involved. And Patricia called his attorney demanding to know if the allegations about Simone are true. Marcus's world is imploding and his lawyer knows a trial would be devastating. What are they offering? Daniel scanned the email. They're willing to accept the divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences if you'll agree not to pursue the adultery claims publicly. They'll waive any claim to the house or your business. And they're proposing a payment plan for Marcus to pay back his share of household expenses. $20,000 total paid over 5 years. $20,000? I repeated incredulously. I calculated he owes me over $300,000. I know, Daniel said. It's insulting. They're banking on you wanting this over quickly and quietly. Should I tell them to go to hell? Tell them $340,000. Payment in full within 90 days. Or we go to trial and I make sure every detail of his affair and financial abuse becomes public record, I said firmly. And Marcus needs to surrender the BMW immediately since it's leased in my name. Daniel smiled. I'll let them know. This is going to get interesting. After Daniel left, I sat in my quiet house and let everything sink in. 24 hours ago, Marcus had stood in this kitchen calling me a gold digger. Now he was scrambling to save his reputation and negotiate his way out of the consequences of his own actions. My phone buzzed. Rachel, can I come over? She texted. I have wine and I think you need a friend. Please, I replied. She arrived 15 minutes later with 2 bottles of expensive red wine and a determination to make sure I was okay. We sat in the living room, the same room where Marcus's family had judged me just yesterday, and I told her everything. I can't believe he thought he could get away with it, Rachel said, pouring us both generous glasses. The arrogance is astounding. He believed his own lies, I said. He told himself the story so many times that he actually thought he was the provider, the successful husband supporting his lazy wife. Reality didn't matter anymore. What are you going to do now? Rachel asked. I mean, after the divorce is final, I took a sip of wine considering. I'm going to keep building my business, maybe travel some. I've always wanted to see Italy, but Marcus never wanted to go anywhere that wasn't a beach resort, and I'm going to figure out who I am without him. You're going to be amazing, Rachel said firmly. You already are. Claire, you've been holding together this entire household, building a successful business, dealing with a cheating husband, and you never fell apart. You're the strongest person I know. I didn't feel strong, I admitted. Most of the time I felt weak for staying as long as I did, for not confronting him sooner, for letting him make me feel worthless. But you did confront him, Rachel pointed out, when you were ready, when you had all your evidence lined up, when you could protect yourself. That's not weakness, Claire. That's strategy. We spent the rest of the evening talking, drinking wine, and gradually I felt the weight lifting from from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I could breathe freely. I could make plans that didn't revolve around Marcus's schedule or needs. I could be myself without constantly trying to prove my worth to someone who would never see it. The next morning, I woke to find my Facebook post had been shared hundreds of times. Women from all over were commenting with their own stories of financial abuse, of being called gold diggers while actually being the breadwinners, of discovering their partners were stealing from them. The response was overwhelming. Several local news outlets had even picked up the story, though they kept names anonymous. Successful businesswoman discovers husband's 3-year affair, funded by her money, became a headline that sparked discussions about financial abuse and how often women's economic contributions are minimized or ignored entirely. Patricia called me directly this time. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "I owe you an apology," she said without preamble. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the strain beneath it. "I spoke to Marcus. He admitted everything. The affair, the lying about finances, all of it." "I see," I said neutrally. "I was wrong about you," Patricia continued. "Completely wrong. I sat in your home, in your house that you own, and I judged you. I accused you of taking advantage of my son when the reality was the exact opposite. I'm ashamed of myself." The apology, while appreciated, felt too little too late. Where was this reflection yesterday when she was encouraging Marcus to demand I prove my worth? "Thank you for saying that," I replied carefully. "I appreciate the apology. Vanessa wants to apologize too," Patricia added. "What she posted on Facebook was inexcusable. She took it down as soon as she learned the truth. But the damage was done." "Yes, the damage was done," I agreed. "Your daughter defamed me publicly. My attorney is pursuing that legally." "Please," Patricia said, and now I could hear genuine distress. "She made a mistake. We all did. Can't we handle this as family?" "We're not family anymore," I said quietly. "Your son saw to that when he betrayed me repeatedly for 3 years. I'm sorry, Patricia, but actions have consequences. Vanessa chose to make false public statements about me. She'll have to deal with the legal ramifications." I hung up before she could respond. Maybe it made me cold. Maybe I should have accepted the apology and moved on. But I was tired of being the one who always had to be gracious, who always had to make things easier for everyone else. Daniel called an hour later with an update. Marcus's attorney responded to our counteroffer. "They're asking for $150,000 over 3 years. Not good enough," I said immediately. "$340,000 within 90 days, or we go to trial." "I'm not negotiating on this, Daniel. He stole from me for years. He humiliated me. He committed adultery and tried to make me look like a villain. I want full restitution." "Understood," Daniel said. "I'll convey that. But Claire, you should know that if we go to trial, everything becomes public record. Every detail of your finances, the affair, all of it. Are you prepared for that level of exposure?" I thought about it for a moment. "Yes," I said finally, "because the truth is on my side. Let it all come out. Let everyone see exactly what he did. Then we'll prepare for trial," Daniel confirmed. "I'll file the formal response today." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and looked at my consulting business. I'd been neglecting it slightly during all the divorce drama, and I had several clients waiting for proposals. Time to get back to work. Time to remember that I had a whole life and career that had nothing to do with Marcus. I spent the next 3 days immersed in work, creating financial strategies for companies, analyzing investment opportunities, building the business that I'd created from nothing. The business that Marcus had dismissed as me playing around on the computer while he supported us. On the 4th day, I received an unexpected visitor. I opened the door to find Simone standing on my porch, looking nervous and considerably less polished than she had in the investigator's photos. "I know you said not to contact you," she began quickly, "but I needed to tell you something in person. Can I come in?" Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her enter. We stood in the foyer, an awkward silence stretching between us. "Marcus showed up at my apartment last night," Simone said finally. "He was drunk, angry. He blamed me for everything, said if I hadn't been so needy and demanding, none of this would have happened. He said I ruined his life." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "That must have been frightening." "He tried to force his way in," Simone continued, her voice shaking slightly. "I had to call the police. They arrested him for attempted assault and violating the restraining order, because apparently your address and mine are within the 500-foot radius." My stomach dropped. "Marcus had been arrested?" "I wanted you to know," Simone said, "because his family is probably going to blame you for that too. But it wasn't your fault. It was his choice to show up drunk and aggressive, his choice to try to force his way into my apartment, just like everything else was his choice." "Thank you for telling me," I said. "Are you okay? Do you feel safe?" "I'm staying with a friend for a few days," Simone replied, "and I took your advice. I got a lawyer. I'm going after him for fraud and breach of promise. He made me financially dependent on him with false promises. My attorney thinks we have a strong case." "Good," I said. "Make him face consequences from every direction." Simone nodded, then looked around my house with curiosity. "He always said this place was too expensive, that it was draining him financially. But you own it outright, don't you?" "I bought it 8 years ago," I confirmed, "before we were even married. He never contributed a single payment." She shook her head in disbelief. "I feel like such an idiot for believing him." "Don't," I said firmly. "He's a skilled liar. He convinced me for 7 years. He convinced you. He convinced his own family. That's not on us. That's on him." After Simone left, I called Daniel to tell him about Marcus's arrest. He was already aware, having been contacted by the police as my attorney of record. "This actually helps our case significantly," Daniel explained. "It demonstrates a pattern of aggressive behavior and poor judgment. The judge will take this into consideration during the divorce proceedings." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now Marcus sits in jail until his bail hearing tomorrow," Daniel said. "And when he gets out, he'll have an assault charge added to his legal troubles." "Claire, this is getting messy. Are you sure you want to continue pushing?" "More than ever." Never, I confirmed. He made his choices. Now he gets to live with them. That evening, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Mitchell? A man's voice, professional and serious. This is David Hammond. I'm Marcus's employer. My heart rate picked up. How can I help you, Mr. Hammond? I wanted to reach out personally to apologize, he said. We had no idea that Marcus was using company resources, time, credit cards to facilitate a personal affair. That's a serious violation of our ethics policy. I also wanted you to know that we're conducting a full investigation into his expense reports. There appear to be some irregularities. I see, I said carefully. If you have any documentation that might be relevant to our investigation, David continued, we'd appreciate your cooperation. This is strictly confidential, of course. I'll have my attorney contact you, I replied. We have extensive documentation. After hanging up, I sat back and let it all wash over me. Marcus wasn't just losing his marriage. He was losing everything. His reputation, his family's respect, potentially his job. All because he'd gotten greedy and careless. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part, a part I wasn't proud of, felt sad. Sad for the man I'd thought Marcus was when we first met. Sad for the marriage I'd believed we had. Sad for all the wasted years. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Heard about the arrest. You okay? I'm okay, I texted back. Better than okay, actually. I'm free. And I was. For the first time in 3 years, since that first suspicious credit card charge, I felt truly free. Free from the lies, the gaslighting, the constant feeling that something was wrong but not being able to prove it. Free from trying to be enough for someone who would never appreciate me. Free from carrying the weight of a marriage that had been over for years, but neither of us wanted to admit. The next morning, I woke to sunshine streaming through my bedroom window. My bedroom, in my house, that I owned entirely on my own. I stretched, made coffee, and sat down to work on a proposal for a potential client. Normal life. My life. Without Marcus in it. 2 weeks after Marcus's arrest, Daniel called me with news I'd been waiting for. He's agreed to our terms, Daniel said, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. $340,000, paid in full within 90 days. He's liquidating his retirement accounts and taking out a loan to cover it. How did you get him to agree? I asked, surprised despite myself. His employer's investigation found approximately $68,000 in fraudulent expense reports over the past 3 years, Daniel explained. They're giving him the option to resign and pay restitution, or face criminal charges. Combined with the assault charge from the incident with Simone, and the very public nature of the divorce proceedings, his attorney convinced him that fighting you in court would only make things worse. So it's over? I asked, barely believing it. Almost, Daniel said. We need to finalize the divorce decree, settle the asset division, and wait for his payment. But yes, Claire, it's essentially over. You won? I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I'd lost 7 years of my life to a man who'd betrayed me repeatedly. But at least now, I'd have closure and compensation. There's something else, Daniel continued. Marcus has requested one final meeting with you, in person, with attorneys present. He says there are things he needs to say that he can't put in writing. Absolutely not, I said immediately. I have nothing to say to him. I told him you'd refuse, Daniel said. But Claire, he's offering an additional $50,000 if you'll meet with him for 1 hour. His attorney assures me it's not an ambush. He genuinely wants to talk. $50,000 to listen to him for an hour? I considered it. That's quite expensive therapy for him. It's your choice, Daniel said. But the money would be paid up front, held in escrow. If you meet with him, you get it regardless of what's said. If you refuse, the offer expires. I thought about it for a long moment. Part of me wanted nothing more than to never see Marcus's face again. But another part, the part that had loved him once, wanted to understand how we'd gotten here. Wanted to hear what he could possibly say that would be worth $50,000. Fine, I said finally, but it happens at your office, with you present. And if he says anything abusive or threatening, I'm walking out and keeping the money. Agreed, Daniel said. I'll set it up for next week. The days leading up to the meeting felt endless. I threw myself into work, accepted 3 new major clients, and began planning a trip to Italy for the fall. I was rebuilding my life piece by piece, and I refused to let Marcus's request for a meeting derail that progress. Rachel came over the night before, bringing takeout and moral support. Are you sure about this? She asked, watching me push pad thai around my plate. You don't owe him closure. I'm not doing it for him, I said. I'm doing it for me. I need to hear what he has to say. I need to look him in the eye one last time and know that I'm completely done. Just promise me you won't let him manipulate you, Rachel said. He's good at that. He can't manipulate me anymore, I assured her. I see him clearly now. Whatever mask he wore before, it's gone. I know exactly who he is. The meeting was scheduled for 10 in the morning at Daniel's office. I dressed carefully in a gray pantsuit that made me feel professional and powerful. I wore my grandmother's pearl earrings, a reminder of where I came from and the strength that ran in my family. When I arrived, Daniel met me in the lobby. Marcus is already here, he said quietly, with his attorney, Robert Chen. Are you ready? As I'll ever be, I replied. We walked into the conference room together. Marcus sat at the far end of the long table, looking like a shadow of the man I'd married. He'd lost weight, his face was drawn, and there were dark circles under his eyes. His expensive suit hung loosely on his frame. Robert Chen, his attorney, sat beside him, looking professionally neutral. Claire, Marcus said as I entered, half rising from his chair. Sit down, Marcus, Daniel said firmly. This meeting was granted at your request. Mrs. Mitchell is here as a courtesy. You have 1 hour. I took a seat across the table from Marcus, keeping my expression carefully blank. Daniel sat beside me, a legal pad and pen ready. Thank you for coming, Marcus began. His voice was rough, like he hadn't been sleeping. I know you didn't have to. You're paying me $50,000 to be here, I said flatly. Let's not pretend this is about courtesy. He flinched at that. Fair enough. I wanted to talk to you face to face because I need you to understand some things about why I did what I did, about where my head was. I don't need to understand, I interrupted. I need you to pay me what you owe me and sign the divorce papers. Your motivations are irrelevant. Please, Marcus said, and his voice cracked. Just hear me out. I know I have no right to ask, but please. I glanced at Daniel, who nodded slightly. The clock on the wall showed we'd been here for 3 minutes. I had 57 more to endure. Fine, I said. Talk. Marcus took a deep breath. When we first got married, I was so proud. Proud to have you. Proud of the life we were building. But somewhere along the way, I started feeling inadequate. You were so smart, so successful at your business, and I was just a sales manager making decent money. I felt like I wasn't enough. So you cheated on me because you felt inadequate? I said coldly. That's your explanation? No, Marcus said quickly. That's not, I'm explaining it wrong. What I mean is, I started lying to myself about our finances. I convinced myself that I was the one holding everything together, that my income was what kept us afloat, because if I was the provider, then I had value, then I was necessary. You were necessary, I said quietly. Not because of money, because I loved you, or I thought I did. I know, Marcus said, his eyes welling up. I know that now. But back then, I couldn't see it. And when I met Simone, she looked at me like I was this successful, powerful man. She believed the lies I told about supporting you, about being the one in charge. And God help me, I liked how that felt. So you kept lying, I said. To her, to me, to yourself. Yes, Marcus admitted. I got in so deep I couldn't find my way out. Every lie required another lie to support it. Every expense I made on Simone, I had to justify with more stories about how you were the one overspending. I created this entire false reality, and I actually started believing it until I filed for divorce, I said. Until reality came crashing down. Until reality came crashing down, Marcus echoed. Claire, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to understand. But I needed you to know that I see it now. I see how badly I destroyed everything. How I hurt you, betrayed you, stole from you. I see all of it. Is that what you wanted to tell me? I asked. That you're sorry? That you see your mistakes now? Marcus shook his head. I wanted to tell you that you were right about everything. Every accusation you made, every number you presented, all of it was true. I wanted you to hear me admit it, without lawyers filtering it, without legal language softening it. I cheated on you for 3 years. I stole over $300,000 from you. I gaslit you into thinking you were the problem. I let my family humiliate you in your own home. And I did it all while telling myself I was justified because I felt inadequate. The room was silent for a long moment. I studied Marcus's face, looking for any sign of manipulation, any hint that this was another performance. But all I saw was genuine remorse and exhaustion. Do you know what the worst part is? I asked finally. It's not even the cheating, Marcus. It's that you made me doubt myself. You made me feel worthless while I was literally keeping us afloat financially. You let me believe I was failing you when the reality was the exact opposite. That's the cruelty I can't forgive. I know, Marcus whispered, and I will spend the rest of my life regretting that. Good, I said simply. You should. Because what you did to me, what you did to Simone, what you did to your own family by making them complicit in your lies, that's not something that gets fixed with an apology. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Marcus said. I'm just asking that you know I understand what I did, that I'm not blaming you or making excuses. It was all me, my insecurity, my lies, my choices. Robert Chen cleared his throat. Marcus has also prepared a written statement, he said, sliding a document across the table. It's a full admission of adultery and financial abuse, notarized and legally binding. He's waiving all rights to contest any aspect of the divorce or asset division. He's also agreed to cover all legal fees for both parties. I picked up the document and scanned it quickly. It was comprehensive, detailing every aspect of Marcus's betrayal in stark legal language. This admission could destroy him if it ever became public. Why would you give me this? I asked Marcus. This is ammunition I could use to ruin you completely. Because you deserve it, Marcus said. Because I deserve whatever consequences come from my actions. And because maybe someday, when enough time has passed, you'll be able to think of me without this much hatred. I don't hate you, Marcus, I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. I hate what you did. I hate how you made me feel. But you're just a sad man who destroyed his own life because he couldn't handle feeling inadequate. Marcus nodded slowly, accepting the assessment. Is there anything else? Daniel asked, checking his watch. We've been here for 38 minutes. There's one more thing, Marcus said. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small velvet box. I opened it to find my grandmother's ring, the one I'd worn on my right hand throughout our marriage until it disappeared 2 years ago. You stole my grandmother's ring? I demanded, anger flaring hot and fast. I pawned it, Marcus admitted, shame coloring his face, when I needed cash quickly for one of Simone's rent payments. I'm sorry, Claire. I'm so sorry. I got it back last week. It cost me twice what I pawned it for, but I got it back. I took the ring from the box, my hands shaking with rage. This ring was the only thing I had left from my grandmother. You knew that. You knew how much it meant to me. I know, Marcus said miserably. I have no excuse. I was desperate and selfish, and I didn't think about anything except covering my lies. I slipped the ring onto my finger, feeling its familiar weight. Then I stood up. We're done here, I said to Daniel. I've heard enough. Claire, wait, Marcus said, standing as well. Please, I need you to know that despite everything, despite all my lies and betrayals, I did love you. I know you don't believe it, and you have no reason to, but it's true. I looked at him for a long moment. This man who'd been my husband, my partner, the person I'd trusted most in the world. Love doesn't steal, Marcus, I said quietly. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't cheat. Whatever you felt for me, it wasn't love. It was convenience. It was comfort. It was having someone to blame for your own inadequacies, but it wasn't love. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Marcus, the $50,000 you paid paid for this meeting? I'm donating it to a women's shelter that helps victims of financial abuse, so at least some good will come from all of this. I walked out without looking back, Daniel following close behind. In the elevator, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. How are you feeling? Daniel asked gently. Lighter, I said honestly. I thought hearing him grovel would feel satisfying, but it didn't. It just felt sad. That's healthy, Daniel observed. It means you're moving on. Back at Daniel's office, we finalized the remaining paperwork. Marcus's payment would be transferred within 90 days. The divorce would be final 30 days after that, and then I'd be completely free. My phone buzzed as I was leaving the building. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for what you said in there, for calling him out on the loving. He said the same thing to me and I almost believed him. You saved me from falling for it again. Simone. I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, we both deserved better. I hope you find it. Her response came quickly. You too. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry I was part of hurting you. I should have asked more questions. I didn't respond to that. There was nothing more to say. That evening, I sat on my back patio with a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. My phone rang. Rachel, how did it go? She asked immediately. It went, I replied. He apologized. He admitted everything. He returned my grandmother's ring that he pawned to pay his mistress's rent. Jesus Christ, Rachel breathed. That's low, even for him. Yeah, I agreed. But you know what? It's over. Really, truly over. I don't have to wonder anymore what he was thinking or why he did it. I don't have to wait for some magical moment of understanding. It's just done. How do you feel? Rachel asked. Free, I said, watching the sun sink below the horizon. For the first time in years, I feel completely free. The 90 days passed faster than I expected. I threw myself into my consulting business, accepting every challenging project that came my way. My client list grew from 12 companies to 23. My revenue doubled. Without the constant drain of Marcus's betrayal weighing on me, I found a creative energy I'd forgotten I possessed. Daniel called on day 87. The payment came through this morning, he said. $340,000 transferred in full to your account, along with the legal fees reimbursement and the settlement for Vanessa's defamation. Total amount, $406,000. I logged into my bank account and stared at the number. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the world's most expensive lesson in trusting the wrong person. How do you want to proceed with the divorce finalization? Daniel asked. As quickly as possible, I replied. Is there anything else I need to do? Just sign the final decree when I send it over, Daniel said. Then it's done. 30 days from now, you'll be officially divorced. That night, I called my parents. I'd told them about the divorce in broad strokes, but had spared them most of the ugly details. My mother answered on the second ring. Sweetheart, she said warmly. I was just thinking about you. How are you holding up? I'm good, Mom, I said honestly. Really good, actually. The divorce will be final in 30 days. Oh, honey, she said softly. I'm so sorry you had to go through all this. Your father and I, we never liked Marcus much. Always thought he was too slick, but we didn't want to interfere. I wish you had, I admitted. Maybe if someone had asked the right questions earlier, I would have seen what was happening sooner. You saw it when you were ready to see it, my mother said wisely. And more importantly, you did something about it. You protected yourself and your assets. We're proud of you, Claire. Those words, simple as they were, meant more than I'd expected. Thanks, Mom. Are you coming home for Thanksgiving? She asked. Your father wants to make his famous turkey, and I'd love to have you here. I thought about it. Home was a small town in Vermont, a world away from Denver and Marcus and everything that had happened. Maybe that's where I am right now. I'll be there, I promised. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and looked at the Italy itinerary I'd been planning. 2 weeks in Tuscany, visiting vineyards and cooking schools, learning to make fresh pasta from nonnas who'd been doing it for 70 years, eating gelato and drinking wine and remembering what it felt like to be happy without someone telling me I didn't deserve it. I booked the trip for October, a month after the divorce would be final. The next few weeks brought a series of small victories. Marcus's employer fired him after the investigation revealed the full extent of his fraud. Simone's lawsuit against him was moving forward, seeking restitution for the promises he'd made to her. Patricia called to apologize again, this time without excuses or justifications. Even Vanessa sent a handwritten letter acknowledging her role in my humiliation and accepting responsibility for her actions. But the biggest change was internal. I started looking at myself differently in the mirror, not as someone who'd been betrayed and stolen from, but as someone who'd survived and thrived despite it. I was stronger than I'd known, smarter, more resilient. Rachel noticed it too. You're different, she said one evening over dinner. Not in a bad way. You just seem more solid somehow, more sure of yourself. I feel more sure of myself, I admitted. It's like I'd been living in this fog for years, doubting everything I knew to be true because Marcus kept telling me I was wrong. And now the fog's lifted and I can see clearly. What do you see? Rachel asked. That I'm capable of more than I thought, I said. That I don't need someone else to validate my worth. That I can trust my instincts. And that I deserve better than settling for someone who makes me feel small. Damn right you do, Rachel agreed, raising her wine glass. To new beginnings, I echoed. The divorce decree arrived on a Tuesday morning, exactly 30 days after Marcus's payment cleared. I signed it in my home office, the same room where I'd first discovered evidence of his affair all those months ago. Then I scanned it, sent it to Daniel, and filed the original in a drawer. It was done. 7 years of marriage ended with a signature. I expected to feel something dramatic, relief maybe, or sadness or anger. Instead, I just felt calm, like a chapter had closed and I was ready to start the next one. My phone rang. Daniel, it's official, he said. As of 10 minutes ago, you are legally divorced from Marcus Mitchell. How are you feeling? Surprisingly okay, I told him. Thank you, Daniel, for everything. You fought hard for me. You fought hard for yourself, he corrected. I just handled the paperwork. But Claire, I want you to know that in 20 years of practicing family law, I've rarely seen someone handle a situation like this with such grace and strength. You should be proud. After hanging up, I sat at my desk for a long moment, processing the finality of it all. Then I opened a new document on my laptop and began writing. Not a legal brief or a client proposal, but a letter to myself. A record of everything I'd learned, everything I'd survived, everything I'd become. Dear Claire, I wrote, you made it through. You survived betrayal and theft and gaslighting and humiliation. You stood up for yourself even when it was terrifying. You demanded respect and accountability. You refused to settle for less than you deserved. And now you're free. Not just legally free from Marcus, but free from the doubt and insecurity he planted in you. Free to be exactly who you are without apology. Remember this strength. Remember that you are capable of more than you imagined. Remember that you deserve love that doesn't require you to diminish yourself. And remember that you are enough exactly as you are. Always have been. Always will be. I saved the letter in a folder marked New Beginnings and closed my laptop. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. I answered the doorbell to find Simone standing on my porch again, but this time she looked different, stronger, more confident. I hope it's okay that I came by, she said. I wanted to tell you in person that my lawsuit's settled. Marcus agreed to pay me $75,000 for breach of promise and fraud. That's wonderful, I said genuinely. I'm glad you're getting some justice. It's not just about the money, Simone explained. It's about him having to acknowledge what he did to me, having to admit in legal documents that he lied and manipulated me. That matters more than the check. I understand completely, I said. That acknowledgement is powerful. I also wanted to thank you, Simone continued, for being kind to me when you had every reason to hate me, for helping me see that I was a victim too. I've started therapy to work through everything, and my therapist says what you did, treating me with compassion instead of anger, probably saved me from years of self-blame. We were both victims of the same man, I said simply. There was no point in us fighting each other when he was the one who betrayed us both. I hope someday I can be as strong as you, Simone said. You already are, I assured her. You left, you fought back, you're rebuilding. That takes incredible strength. After Simone left, I sat on my porch and thought about the strange journey that had brought us here. Two women, both betrayed by the same man, both finding strength in unexpected places. There was poetry in it somehow. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother. Your father and I have been talking. We want to give you something. Your grandmother's house in Vermont, the one we inherited when she passed. We were going to sell it, but we think you should have it. A place to escape to when Denver feels too heavy. I stared at the message, tears pricking my eyes. My grandmother's house was a small cottage on 5 acres, surrounded by trees and peace. I'd spent summers there as a child, learning to garden and bake and be still. I can't accept that, I texted back. It's worth too much. My mother's response came quickly. You've been carrying everyone else's burdens for too long. Let us carry this one for you. The house is yours. No arguments. I called her immediately. Mom, I can't. Yes, you can, she said firmly. And you will. Your grandmother would want you to have it. She always said you were the one who understood the value of peace and quiet. Consider it a gift from her and from us. Thank you, I whispered, unable to say more past the lump in my throat. The trip to Italy was everything I'd hoped for and more. I spent 2 weeks eating incredible food, drinking wine, learning to cook from women who viewed food as love made tangible. I wandered through vineyards and medieval towns. I sat in cafes and wrote in my journal. I remembered what it felt like to be just Claire, not someone's wife or someone's victim, just myself. On my last night in Tuscany, I sat on the balcony of my rented villa and looked out over the rolling hills. My phone had been off for most of the trip, but I turned it on to take photos of the sunset. Messages flooded in, Rachel checking on me, my mother sending photos of the cottage being prepared, Daniel with final paperwork, and one message that made me pause. It was from Patricia, Marcus's mother. Claire, I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted you to know that Marcus has moved back in with us temporarily. He's in therapy and working as a warehouse manager to rebuild his finances. He asks about you sometimes, if you're happy, if you've moved on. I tell him you have. I hope that's true. I hope you're finding peace. You deserved so much better than what my son gave you. Patricia. I read the message twice, then looked back at the sunset. Was I happy? Was I finding peace? Yes, I realized I was. Not because of the money I'd recovered or the justice I'd received, but because I'd reclaimed myself. I'd remembered who I was beneath all the lies and manipulation. I'd found my strength and my worth and my voice. I typed back a simple response. I am happy. Thank you for asking. I wish you and your family well. Then I turned off my phone and watched the last light fade from the sky, feeling more at peace than I had in years. 6 months after the divorce became final, I stood in the living room of my grandmother's cottage in Vermont, watching snow fall softly outside the windows. The place had been thoroughly renovated, but still maintained its rustic charm. Exposed wooden beams, a stone fireplace, wide plank floors that creaked in all the familiar places. I'd been splitting my time between Denver and Vermont, running my consulting business remotely and discovering that I actually preferred the quiet of the countryside to the bustle of the city. My client list had grown to 31 companies, and I'd hired 2 junior consultants to help manage the workload. The business I'd built while Marcus dismissed it as laying on the computer was now generating over $400,000 annually. Rachel was visiting for the weekend, sprawled on the couch with a mug of hot chocolate. So this is what peace looks like, she observed, gesturing at the serene scene outside. This is what peace looks like, I agreed, settling into the armchair across from her. Any regrets? Rachel asked. About the divorce, the way you handled everything? I thought about it honestly. None. I protected myself and my assets. I held Marcus accountable for his actions. I didn't let his family or his mistress paint me as the villain. And I came out of it stronger than I went in. You certainly did, Rachel said. Though I have to say, when you first told me what Marcus said that night, calling you a gold digger in front of his family, I never imagined it would end with you owning 2 properties, running a thriving business, and him working in a warehouse living with his parents. Neither did I admitted. But that's the thing about hidden assets and financial abuse. The person doing the abusing often has no idea what their victim is actually capable of. My phone rang. I glanced at the screen and saw Daniel's name. Claire, he said when I answered. I have some news you might find interesting. Marcus filed for bankruptcy this morning. I felt nothing at that information. No satisfaction, no sympathy, nothing. Marcus had made his choices. These were simply the consequences. Simone's lawsuit, the restitution to his employer, the divorce settlement, and his legal fees, Daniel continued. It all added up to more than he could manage on a warehouse salary. He'll be discharged of most of his debts, but his credit is destroyed for the next 7 to 10 years. Thank you for letting me know, I said, though I'm not sure why you thought I'd want to hear it. Because you deserve to know that justice was served fully, Daniel replied. He lost everything he valued, his reputation, his career, his financial stability, even his family's respect. Meanwhile, you're thriving. That's the ending you earned. After hanging up, I told Rachel about Marcus's bankruptcy. She raised her mug in a mock toast. To consequences, she said. To consequences, I echoed. That evening, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read simply, "Thank you." I almost deleted it as spam, but something made me open it. Dear Claire, it began. You don't know me, but my name is Jennifer Patterson. I was one of the women who read about your story online, about how you discovered your husband's financial abuse and held him accountable. Your story gave me the courage to investigate my own husband's finances. I discovered he'd been doing the same thing to me, spending my income while claiming to support me. I confronted him with evidence, just like you did. We're divorced now, and I'm rebuilding my life. I wanted to thank you for being brave enough to share your truth. It literally changed my life. With gratitude, Jennifer. I read the email 3 times, feeling something shift in my chest. My story, painful as it had been to live through, had helped someone else. That mattered more than I'd expected. I replied simply, Jennifer, I'm so proud of you for investigating and protecting yourself. You did the hard part. I just shared my experience. Your courage is your own. Wishing you all the best in your new beginning. Claire. Over the next few weeks, I received several more emails like Jennifer's. Women who'd seen my Facebook post or heard about the case through local news. Women who'd been inspired to examine their own relationships and finances. Women who'd left abusive situations because my story showed them it was possible. Rachel suggested I start a blog or support group. You're accidentally becoming an advocate, she pointed out. Might as well make it intentional. I considered it. The idea of turning my painful experience into something helpful for others had appeal, but I wasn't quite ready yet. The wounds were still too fresh, even if they were healing well. Instead, I made a substantial donation to 3 organizations that supported victims of financial abuse. The $50,000 Marcus had paid for our final meeting went to a women's shelter, as I promised. Another $100,000 went to legal aid services that helped women navigate divorce when they couldn't afford attorneys, and $50,000 went to financial literacy programs that taught women how to protect their assets and recognize the signs of economic manipulation. Spring arrived in Vermont with spectacular displays of wildflowers across my 5 acres. I spent weekends gardening, remembering the lessons my grandmother had taught me about patience and growth. Some things couldn't be rushed. Some transformations took time. I also started dating cautiously. Nothing serious, just coffee or dinner with men I met through friends or professional connections. I was learning to trust my instincts again, to recognize red flags I would have ignored before. And I was learning that I didn't need a relationship to feel complete. I was enough on my own. One particularly memorable date ended with a man asking me to split the check, then getting angry when I agreed immediately and pulled out my credit card without hesitation. He'd apparently expected me to protest or offer to pay the whole thing to prove something. Instead, I'd simply paid my half, thanked him politely, and left. Rachel found the story hilarious when I told her. You've become the woman Marcus accused you of being, she laughed, completely comfortable with your financial independence and unwilling to play games about it. The irony isn't lost on me, I admitted. In May, I received an invitation in the mail. Simone was getting married to someone she'd met through her new job. The invitation included a note. Claire, I know this might seem strange, but I wanted you to know I'm getting married to a good man who respects me and values my independence. I wouldn't have had the courage to believe I deserved that if you hadn't shown me what real strength looks like. No pressure to attend, I just wanted you to know. Simone. I sent a generous gift to the registry address with a card wishing her all the happiness she deserved. I didn't attend the wedding, but I was genuinely glad she'd found someone worthy of her. Summer brought my parents for an extended visit. We spent long evenings on the porch, talking about everything and nothing. One night, my father brought up Marcus. I always knew that boy was trouble, he said gruffly. Too smooth, too quick with explanations for everything. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, curious rather than accusatory. Would you have listened? My mother interjected gently. You loved him, or you thought you did. Sometimes people need to learn these lessons themselves. She was right. I wouldn't have listened. I would have defended Marcus, explained away the concerns, convinced myself my parents just didn't understand him. I'm glad you got out when you did, my father continued, before you had children with him. That would have complicated everything. I'd thought about that too. The silver lining of Marcus always saying he wasn't ready to start a family. At least there were no children caught in the middle of his betrayal. In August, I received an unexpected call from Patricia. We hadn't spoken since that text exchange in Italy, and I was surprised to see her name on my screen. Claire, she said when I answered. I hope I'm not overstepping by calling. I wanted you to know that Marcus is engaged. I felt absolutely nothing at that news. Oh, I said neutrally. That's quick. Her name is Amanda, Patricia continued. She works at the warehouse with him. She knows about everything that happened with you and Simone. He was honest with her from the start, apparently. Good for them, I said, meaning it. I hope he's learned from his mistakes. I think he has, Patricia said quietly. But Claire, I didn't call to talk about Marcus's engagement. I called to apologize again. I've been in therapy myself, working through some things. My therapist helped me see how I enabled Marcus's behavior, how I always made excuses for him and blamed the women in his life instead of holding him accountable. I appreciate that, I said carefully. I was a terrible mother-in-law to you, Patricia continued. I judged you, belittled you, supported my son when he was clearly in the wrong. I let my own biases about women and work and money cloud my judgment. I'm sorry, Claire, truly sorry. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It takes courage to examine your own behavior that, honestly. Are you happy? Patricia asked. I hope you are. You deserve happiness. I am happy, I told her. Very happy, actually. After hanging up, I sat on my porch and thought about how far everyone had come. Marcus in therapy, engaged to someone who knew his history. Patricia examining her own role in the family dysfunction. Simone married and thriving, and me building a life I'd never imagined possible. The leaves began to change in September, painting Vermont in shades of gold and crimson. I hosted a small dinner party at the cottage, inviting Rachel, my parents, and a few neighbors I'd become friendly with. As we sat around my grandmother's old dining table, laughing and sharing stories, I felt a profound sense of contentment. This was what I'd been searching for during those years with Marcus. Not a perfect life, but an authentic one. Not someone to complete me, but the freedom to be complete on my own. Not expensive gifts or grand gestures, but genuine connection and mutual respect. As the evening wound down and my guests prepared to leave, Rachel pulled me aside. You know what I realized tonight, she said. This is the first time I've seen you truly relaxed in years. Not performing, not trying to prove anything, just being yourself. That's because I finally know who myself is, I replied, without Marcus's lies telling me otherwise. In October, I made a decision. I would write about my experience, not as a victim seeking sympathy, but as someone sharing hard-won wisdom. I started a blog called Financial Freedom, documenting my journey and providing resources for women in similar situations. The response was overwhelming. Within 3 months, the blog had over 50,000 regular readers. Women shared their stories, asked for advice, supported each other through their own divorces and financial recoveries. What had started as my personal tragedy had become a community of survivors helping each other heal. I also started speaking at women's conferences and business groups, talking about financial abuse and how to protect yourself. The consulting business that Marcus had dismissed as playing on the computer became a platform for educating women about economic independence. 1 year after the divorce became final, I sat in my Vermont cottage on a snowy December evening, reflecting on everything that had changed. My business was thriving beyond anything I'd imagined. My blog was helping thousands of women recognize and escape financial abuse. I owned 2 properties outright and had rebuilt my savings to a comfortable level. And most importantly, I'd rebuilt my sense of self-worth and trust in my own judgment. Marcus's accusation that I was a gold digger had been projection of the highest order. He was the one who'd been living off my income, stealing my money, using my resources to fund his affair. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't been so painful. But I'd survived. More than survived, I'd thrived. And in doing so, I'd proven to myself that I was strong enough to face anything, smart enough to protect myself, worthy enough to demand respect and accountability. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Happy divorce anniversary. You made it. Proud of you. I smiled and typed back, thank you for being there through all of it. Couldn't have done it without you. As I sent the message, I looked around my cottage, at the life I'd built from the ashes of my marriage. This was my victory. Not the money I'd recovered or the justice I'd received, but the woman I'd become. Strong, independent, unshakable in my worth. Marcus had called me a gold digger and demanded I prove my financial contribution. In the end, I'd proven so much more than that. I'd proven that I was capable of surviving betrayal, standing up for myself, and building something beautiful from the wreckage. And as I sat there in the firelight, sipping wine and listening to the wind outside, I realized I wouldn't change a thing. Not the pain, not the betrayal, not the difficult journey, because it had all led me here, to this moment of absolute peace and self-knowledge. I was free, truly, completely free. And that was worth more than any amount of money Marcus could ever repay. The gold digger had struck gold after all, not in someone else's pockets, but in discovering her own inherent worth. And that was the best revenge of all. Reflexion final. Looking back on my story, I realized that Marcus's accusation was the catalyst I needed to finally see my situation clearly. Sometimes the cruelest moments lead to the most profound transformations. If you've ever felt undervalued in a relationship, if you've ever been called names that don't reflect your truth, if you've ever wondered whether you're crazy for suspecting betrayal, trust yourself. Your instincts are probably right. Financial abuse is more common than people think. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it looks like a partner who dismisses your career while living off your income. Sometimes it's someone who makes you feel guilty for spending money you earned. Sometimes it's a person who controls all the finances and keeps you in the dark about where the money goes. Whatever form it takes, you deserve better. You deserve respect, honesty, and a partnership based on mutual trust and appreciation. And if you're not getting that, you deserve the courage to walk away and rebuild. It won't be easy. It certainly wasn't easy for me, but it will be worth it. On the other side of that pain brain is a version of yourself you've forgotten existed, stronger, wiser, and absolutely unstoppable. Have you ever experienced something similar? Have you been accused of something you didn't do, only to discover the accuser was guilty of exactly that? Or have you found unexpected strength in surviving betrayal? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Your support means everything. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for believing that we all deserve relationships built on honesty and respect. Until next time, remember, know your worth, protect your assets, and never let anyone make you feel small. You are enough. You always have been.